Good evening, ladies, and welcome to our very first session for the year. My name is Muraro Nemataeni, and I'm going to be your facilitator tonight. And today, the book that we have read this month, it's under the personal finance theme. And the name of the book, it's From Debt to Riches by Phumelele Ndumo. And so for today, this is our agenda. We'll go through it later on, but just to give you an overview of what will happen. And then as we start, we are going to do an introduction to ECHO program and also the introduction to Empowered Women. And then we'll each do our own introductions where you introduce yourself. Think about this as a 30-second speech where you're going to share about who you are, where you're based, what you do, and how people can get hold of you, those kind of things within 30 seconds. And then we're going to hand over to our author, Phumelele Ndumo, to take us through the book From Debt to Riches. And then we'll have Swanda do a case presentation where she'll give an overview of the book, share her own experience of the book first before opening up and running the conversation with the author and taking questions from the participants. So as most of you have noted and agreed on, the sessions this year is only going to be an hour. We used to do this for an hour, 30 minutes. And then we've changed the time from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So officially, welcome to this year's sessions. And for your information, we'll be recording the session for the hub participants that are not able to join us. And then if anyone has electricity, internet, or technical difficulties, they'll be able to watch the recording. This will be available on the Empowered Women Book Club YouTube channel. And by participating in this session, you're consenting to being recorded. So this is our agenda. I did touch on it earlier on. And then, so the ECHO model, we've partnered with Project ECHO, and we use their platform in order to be able to use technology to leverage on scarce resources, to share best practices, and also do a case-based learning, and also be able to monitor the outcomes of the program through a web-based database. So this program was mostly used in the health space, where if patients are not able to travel to go see a doctor, then they can just use technology to be able to connect and share their cases and also be able to assist the people on the other side. So here in South Africa, we were the first to launch an ECHO program on education. And so far, so good, because we're able to put in our sessions for the rest of the year. And then if there's sessions that we want to do, we can just load the session and then send session reminders. We're also able to take feedback from the participants in terms of how we can do things better. So Empowered Women Book Club. Empowered Women is a registered nonprofit working for the rights and empowerment of women and children. And ours is to empower, educate, and celebrate. And we do this through the book club, where we're reading one book a month, and then we review on the last Sunday of the month. And then on Saturdays, we read with the children as Empowered Kids Reading Club. And we've got presence in all the 9 provinces, and also have women in Zimbabwe and Lesotho. And Juliet is here. We've got women in Italy and Uganda that join us on these sessions. And then we have a network in WhatsApp where we have over 450 women. And we're also a member of the Limpopo United Business Forum and the Literacy Association of South Africa. So now we're going to go to the introductions. I'm going to firstly allow the team to introduce themselves. And then after they have introduced themselves, we'll open up to participants to do their introduction. I'm Muraro Nemataeni. I am the founder of Empowered Women, and I also run EmpowerX Advisory Services, which is an authorized FSP where we do risk retirements and investments. I'm based in Poyendo in Limpopo, here in South Africa. Over to you, Malebu. You can unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me because I can't see myself on video. Yeah, for some reason I can't see myself on video. I'm from Pretoria. I'm sitting outside currently, and there's a lot of mosquitoes here. But I just need the air from outside. So guys, my name is Malebo. I'm from Pretoria. I'm a financial advisor by profession, and I joined ImPower'd Women, I think, in 2021, and I have been reading since. I'm the what do they call it? I ran the Gauteng program. I don't know what Molale calls me. But yeah, I'm excited to be part of ImPower'd. And guys, we're having our vision board on the 10th. If you are in Gauteng and you want to attend, please do register on the link. I will reshare it again, and come to our vision and meet the people in Gauteng, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malebo, for the introduction. She is our provincial representative for Gauteng. So for people that would like to introduce themselves, you're most welcome to raise your hand, and then we will hand over to you just to ensure that we avoid the silence and people that are in convenient spaces are able to notify us by raising their hands. So is there anyone else that would like to introduce themselves?
Hi all, Busisiwe Ngwenya, an author. I'm in a nosy place, so I won't stay long. Thank you.
Thank you, Busi, for the introduction. We can be able to take two more since we also started a bit late so that we don't run over time. So if anyone is keen to unmute, introduce themselves, you're most welcome to do that. Okay, in that case, we're going to go to the next session. So those were the introductions. I saw Zwanda is here as well, and also Mayor Phumelele Ndumo is here. So I would hand over to you, Zwanda, to introduce yourself, and thereafter we'll hand over to Mayor Ndumo to do the introduction and also take us through from debt to riches.
Thank you so much, Munaro. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I was getting a bit anxious because my laptop was not allowing me to join. So, I almost had a heart attack. But I'm glad now it's behaving. So my name is Zwanda Sandarasiwera, and I am a personal finance enthusiast. I speak about personal finance any chance I get. And I'm happy to be here participating in the review of From Debt to Riches. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Zwanda. We'll hand over to you later on. So now we're going to hand over to you, Phumelele Ndumo, to take us through From Debt to Riches. I'm not sure if you would be sharing any slides or if this one is fine. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. The book is quite old. To be honest, I don't remember what's in the book. But I wrote the book out of concern. We have far too many South Africans who are far too heavily indebted. And the issues of personal finance and high indebtedness, they actually affect not just you as a heavily indebted person, they affect yourself, they affect your children, they affect your entire family. They can even affect your health. And in the worst case scenario, you even have people committing suicide. So as a former banker, I was fortunate to start in the banking sector, working as an internal auditor, excuse me, and looking at what interest rates do to people. When interest rates increase and people lose their homes, lose their cars, and the impact of that on their families and on themselves as well. And I felt that I needed to do something with the knowledge that I had. to say, please be aware of this animal called debt. Don't take it lightly. Everyone is wanting to sell debt to you. There is nothing wrong with that. You protect yourself. And the best way to protect yourself is to have as much knowledge as possible around issues of debt management, issues of saving, just understanding how to make the most of the money that you have. And that is how the book was actually born. But it's not the first book, it's actually my third book. The first book was how to buy a home and educate your children, even if you think you can't afford to. As we know, prior to NSFAS, we will go, especially as Black South Africans, will study as far as matric. When it was time for us to go to university, parents simply did not have money to send us to university because they had not saved enough. So the book was really trying to say, at least own a home and save for the varsity education of your children. And when I was starting to speak to people through invitations to churches, women's groups, and so forth, I actually realized that we had a bigger problem. And that bigger problem was just understanding your finances and how to manage your debt and all of that. And somewhere along the way, FNB asked me to write a book for them when they were going to Africa. But that book does not have my name because they bought all rights to it. So it was for the North Africa market to basically, educate them around issues of home ownership and home loans and all of that. And soon after that, I felt another need to now address what is still a serious problem. We just don't, I always say, when you play a game and you don't understand the rules of the game, you're bound to fail. And unfortunately, most of us, we're doing money. We finish high school, sometimes we finish university, and we're professionals in our own right. So little about money, if anything. And we simply think that we're going to make it without understanding the rules of money. So this simple book, From Debt to Riches, Steps to Financial Success, is trying to impart the basic knowledge of personal finances, which hopefully, if you do understand and do grab, you'll then have a better chance of making it, in your career, because we study so much and we work so hard because we want to have something for ourselves. But when we are heavily indebted, we can't even own homes, or homes get repossessed when interest rates increase. And we find, people who are earning 200,000 plus per month as poor as people who earn less than 10,000 because they are spending 250,000 per month. And there's a reality of what happens when you don't understand how to manage your money. And sometimes I also think that this thing of debt, and I know partly it's because when people start out as young professionals, you expected to have debt for you to be credit worthy. But even with that, you've got to be smart. You can't afford to just go and take on as much debt as possible and buy the biggest car and all of that just because you want to be credit worthy. We have to learn to be smart with our money and break the, almost it's like a curse to a point, the issue of debt. Sometimes it runs in families, and I have young professionals who tell me, my mother is so heavily indebted, I don't even trust myself with money. So I'm hoping that through this little book and all the other interventions by other people out there, simple things like encouraging people to save money. This is my saving book from 2023. I've not yet opened it. Through such initiatives, I'm hoping that we're going to begin to break the culture of getting into debt, where we're buying clothes and paintings on debt. If we're doing that, when are we going to for the important things that we need, such as varsity fees for our children, our homes, and all of that? So I hope I've said enough. I'm also mindful of the time limitations that we have.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing about your book. I do apologize for the silence. My screen doesn't give this option of muting and unmuting, so I had to wait for it to show up. So now I'm going to hand over to you, Zwanda Raswela. When you were sharing about the book and the initiatives that you were doing and people who haven't even opened their 2023 money boxes, I was just like, hashtag goals. And you said we're buying clothes and pantries in debt. And I'm like, yo, yeah, most of us are guilty of such things. And it's a good thing to have such a platform where we're able to share about the realities and also be able to discuss in terms of how we can do things better. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Zwanda, over to you so that you can take us through the case presentation and the book discussion.
No, thank you so much, Munaro, and thank you for allowing me to be able to be part of this. It's such a pleasure to be able to also reflect on what I've learned and or what I've read about and the amazing lessons that I found in the book, the things that I didn't know before I actually read the book. So I would just like to ask, if you are the host, would you kindly allow me to share?
Definitely. Yeah, you should be able to share.
Thank you. I am just going to share our case study templates. Just as you guys know, technology, at the point in which you need it the most, it does the thing which it does. So I'm just trying to share. Okay, I think I can do so now. Great. Yes, I can share. Okay. So this is a Word document, and yeah, you will forgive me about that. I meant to convert it, but I can't find my PDF one, and I don't want to take too much of the time, right? So I was asked by the team to actually do my reflection on the book. And this was such a pleasure for me because I was reading it for the second time. I read the book for the first time last year, and it had a huge impact in my finances. To be honest, I personally am always a learner when it comes to personal finance, because I believe that there's just so much to learn out there, and that can better our journey in terms of personal finance. So I'm just going to quickly go through it, and I'm going to make it short so that we can have enough time to do Q&A. I have a few Q&A that I prepared, but I will also let you guys also ask your questions based on your understanding and your feedback of the book. Okay. So the book is From Debt to Riches, Steps to Financial Success by Phumelele. Sorry, I spelled your name wrong there. Ndumo. And the overview of the book, from my understanding, sorry?
Sorry to interrupt. Just call me Phumi. It's much easier.
Phumi, thank you.
It's much easier.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So just an overview of the book, just from my understanding, I find that the book gives us a holistic view of money management. I actually love the flow of the book so much. The book starts with a very detailed description of various methods that we can use in case we are over indebted. And I found that this is very important, and it was an interesting approach from my view, because that's a very relatable circumstances for a lot of South Africans. So she went on to also highlight some of the important principles and tips on how we can minimize the leaks on our money or the money leaks through budgeting, and also how we can better prepare for our future through savings and investments. I found the book very relatable, and it's written in South African context. So if you haven't read it, or if you're still reading it, this is some of the things that you can anticipate from the book going forward. So in terms of lessons that I learned, I'm gonna take it high level and also personalize it. I find that the book teaches a lot in terms of personal finance education, just an understanding of how money works, right? And I find that this is very important without highlighting specificity of what area of personal finance, because like she said, when we know better, we do better. I was actually writing when you're speaking, when you said that we must have as much knowledge as possible, because when we know the rules, when we do not understand the rules of the game, we're definitely going to lose. And this is what I found as the biggest lesson for me, particularly when it comes to the first 4 chapters that speaks about debt. And I was like, if you haven't read this book and you have never heard anything about debt consolidation, debt mediation, and as well as counseling and so forth, how would you know which method you're supposed to use when you're over indebted, right? So when we know better, we actually do better. When we know better, we also know the things that are being sold to us, right? And again, one biggest highlight was that personal finance is personal, right? I see that the different examples she gives in the book, and I realized that a lot of people are surrounded by different circumstances. And it's very important that you understand that your circumstances is different from the next person. And therefore, the decision that you are to make when it comes to your finances has to be a realistic and relevant solutions for you. For an example, your colleague who earn the same salary as you could be buying a car, a new car, a BMW. I know there is an example like that in the book. And it's not realistic for you to just want the car simply because your colleague is buying it. This sounds straightforward, but what I've learned is that peer pressure is actually more predominant in elder people than it is with young people, because the consequences that it has when you are elderly, especially in personal finance, it's actually more heavier. So make sure that you understand that your story matters, and the solutions that you have to take and decisions that you make have to be relevant for you, and you have to be honest with yourself, right? Another takeaway that I found is that it's very important to start early, right? And I know there's a topic of that was discussed that says start early, you will finish first, right? And this chapter was actually highlighting the importance of compound interest, that if you start early, your money will compound and it will work for you. You're probably going to be able to have more money than someone who starts early later and actually save double than you do, particularly on retirement. I think a lot of young people say that, oh, well, I have a lot to do now, I'll think about retirement later. However, you're stealing from yourself, because now you have time and you have compound interest that can play on your side. The starting early, for me personally, is very important because it allows you to engage with the market itself, with personal finance itself. You get to understand a lot more when you are engaging. If you save money in the bank, that's the only time you get to understand how little the interest they're offering is, and for you to be able to expand beyond the interest or the option of a fixed deposit account and all the saving option that the bank has to more investing products such as unit trust, right? And what is important with starting early is also nurturing the habit of handling money. I believe that handling money is a lot to do with habits and discipline than it is with how much you save. I find people being surprised saying that she's only a nurse, she's only a teacher, how can she afford this and that and that? But what happens most of the time is that people then take themselves seriously and manage their money according to their income, and they're able to maximize it. And if you're still YOLOing, you'll be surprised at how much more a lot of people who earn less are able to do. So let's start early so we can maximize our income. And again, I think she mentioned this, credit can be a thief to our income. In terms of application in regards to what I've done in my own personal space as it relates to the book, one of the aspects that I want to highlight so much is from page 26, where the author was highlighting the fact that you need to write down all your credits that you have and the interest rates, how much in total you owe. And for me, I was so surprised that I didn't actually know how much my credit card interest rate is. I was like, I'm supposed to know this. It's my money, right? And then they are called my banker just to ask. I don't use it, but it's better to know. At least when I get to use it, I will also understand that. That's like a practical application that I did last year immediately after reading the book, to just highlight, see, even when my debt are long-term, also to see which one can I settle first, because ultimately I want to be debt-free. And on pace, on lane is also another practical application of the book that I feel like is very important. Again, I mentioned your personal finance experience is personal. So to understand that just because you are in engineering or you are an accountant, you don't have to necessarily do, all those things that people, your peers, would be doing. And the importance of delayed gratification. For me, this is a lived experience, because when I graduated, people who know mining engineers will tell you they know one who owns a BMW. There's a mentality of buying a BMW right after graduation. And for me, that didn't make sense. I was like, well, I don't think that this is the right thing. And at the time, in 2017, when I called the bank and I was like, please do a pre-approval for me so that I can see what I can afford. And they would tell me 14% interest rate, you don't have credit record. And I was like, no, there's no way that I'm going to buy a car now simply because my peers are buying. I don't have good credit record because I don't have credit yet. So I'm going to build this thing up, and I'm only going to buy a car when I actually have all my things in place. So those are some of the things that I actually have practiced, or I do practice, as it relates to the lessons that I learned from the book. Again, another one is like budgeting to zero. One thing that I see is that people will say, I can't stick to my budget, or I can't stick to my savings. What I've learned is that, and it's there on the book, I don't remember the page, I think it's like page 85, if I'm not mistaken. It speaks about understanding your leaks, right? For me, the leaks was takeaways. Before COVID, I never used to cook, and I'll justify it and I say, well, it's not that expensive. But when I think about maximizing my income, I realize how much that was stealing from me. And that's when I started to actually understand, for takeaways, how much are we spending? For going out, how much are we talking? And a friend who can just call me and say, hey, let's go to Bali. Well, I'm not going, it's not in my budget this year. So that's some of the practical examples that I got to lead. So I will ask a couple of questions, and I'll also allow you guys to also share on the chat. If you have any questions, so just raise your hands so that we can continue to have the conversation with Mepume on the book, right? So first question that I had was about the title. I found the title very inspirational, From Debt to Riches. I think this is a very relatable story for a lot of South Africans, right? So I wanted to know, like, what inspired the flow of the book, and what inspired the title. I know you mentioned a bit about this when you were starting, and yeah, that's just what I wanted to know, that what was the thought behind the title of the book, as well as the flow as you put it on the book.
The title was not even thought about, because I submitted the script to the publishers.
Yes.
And by the way, at the time, I had my own personal editor, because I was not confident about my writing skills. And I wanted somebody who had personal finance background to edit the book, so that it's not just, correct in terms of English, but also in terms of the content and all the qualitative stuff that is in the book. And after they had done all the work, then they said to me, so what's the title of the book? I didn't even think about it. I just said, well, I'm starting with debt and I'm ending off with, investments and all of that. So I think let's just call it From Debt to Riches. So there was not really much thought that went into it. And as you rightly said, I'm starting off with debt in the book. And that's because the last time I checked the stats, and sorry, this is before COVID.
Yeah.
We already had 10.4 million South Africans who were, blacklisted. And And that just goes to show how poorly we're managing our money.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to start off with debt in the book, so that if you're sitting with those problems, you can get a copy of the book, read, understand more about your money, and hopefully apply what you've read about. And I'm quite pleased. A number of people would, email us and say, I was in debt and I got your book.
Yeah.
I'm free of debt. Yeah, so I think that explains the flow. And yes, yeah, I think I've answered the first bullet point.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you so much. It really does make sense, to be honest. I found it so hopeful, because really I was coming from the heavy stuff, which is chapter 1 to 4, and going into more light as to how to own a house and then how to invest, which was really a lot more. It brought hope. It brought hope. There was a lot of heavy stories in regards to what is happening in regards to debt, management, and what if you don't know, you can get into in terms of being garnished without knowing, and without knowing if the interest they're charging you is correct. Those things were a little bit heavy, but as well as bringing so much light in regards to, hey, you need to be careful about this and that. And I really appreciate that. And then it also, for someone who's really like going through that kind of experience, as you flow through the book, I guess it brings you hope in regards to, this is what it can ultimately get to if you endure the process of, being over indebted. So my next question would be, what can you tell someone who's currently struggling with debt, has not gotten into any of the options that you've spoken about in the book, in terms of, and I know that a lot of people really don't feel comfortable speaking about this for understandable reasons. Money is such a sensitive topic. A lot of people don't open up about it, but it gets us into a lot more trouble. So what can you tell someone who's currently struggling in debt and they're losing hope in regards to if they will ever be free of debt? And in addition to that question, I also want to understand, like, which solution should one think of? I know you mentioned a lot of overcoming over indebtedness. Should one think of based on the depth of the debt in which they're in? So those are the two questions that I would like you to help us with.
Okay. I found that people are different, and it depends on how heavily indebted you are. Some people can get a copy of the book and they are your DIY of this world, and they get the book, they apply, and they get out of debt. Others, sometimes because of how heavily indebted they are, it's begun to affect their self-esteem, and they are afraid, they are having sleepless nights and all of that. And maybe at that point, you can't DIY and help yourself. You may need to get professional help. And in terms of what solution can you follow, I always say this, we are all different and our circumstances are different. Yes, we have, I think it's an 8 to 10 point system that we use to help people to get out of debt. But I can't prescribe without understanding your particular situation. We have written in our blog some of the successful case studies. This is also to help those people who are DIY. For instance, for somebody who owns a home, the solution could be different to somebody who does not own a home.
Yes.
If you own a car, your solution will be different to somebody who doesn't own a car. It's also a matter of where are you in terms of your credit report. And that's why when you come to us and you're seeking help with your debt, amongst other things, the first things we do is to check your credit report. And I always say this, and I would like everyone who's here today to understand this. Your credit report, treat it very carefully, because there is so much that we or a negative thing and is below your score, experience score is below 600, then our options are limited at that point. so there is no one size fits all. And the first step is to understand where you are, what you own, what your credit report looks like, and then we start with the solution. And the success is actually dependent on you as well. In some instances, we're able to use simple tools like your re-advance loan, which unfortunately many people don't even know about. And we've been able to get people out of debt within a few days, 2-3 days max. They're out because there was, a re-advance amount available. And it's sad. I mean, I've worked with advocates who own several properties and they had no clue of something as simple as a re-advance loan. And sometimes they will be referred to me when they are already so heavily indebted. And I do a scan and I say, but here is money. You've got 300,000 in a re-advance. And they say, what is that? And then I explain. And we then assist them to apply for that re-advance. And in a short space of time, the debt has been dealt with. We use cars, whatever asset you have. And if you ask me why, I'm not so sure where in the book it is, but understanding the interest rate, I think this is the most unfortunate thing about us as South Africans. And you mentioned it earlier about your own credit card. When you don't even know what interest you are paying on your credit. And then that's why people go for the most expensive credit when they could have easily used the cheapest credit, which is a home loan, being a secured long-term loan. And also just understanding that, especially when interest rates are high, as they are at the moment, you also want to look at your cash flow. You don't want to be earning 20,000 and spending the entire 20,000 because you're using the most expensive form of debt. Whereas if you knew how to use the cheapest form of debt, you could actually be spending 15,000. And these are the things that we share with our customers and we help them to deal with. If we were to do a scan here today, out of the how many 25 participants that are here who have credit cards, what interest rates are they paying? We'll find that most don't know. And that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yes, again, personal finance is personal. Your situation is not the same as the other. Therefore, they will need to do an in-depth assessment of your conditions and your circumstances for them to prescribe a solution that is very specific for your situation. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to ask one last question, and then we're going to open up for the audience on the floor. So I wrote this one down. So a car is one of the most expensive expenses that we'll have, right? Probably a house and a car would be one of the most expensive expenses that we own. And as highlighted in the book, it's not only expensive, it also depreciates in value. So, and it's one of those things that we normally use amongst each other as a measure of success, right? So there is really a pressure amongst us to actually buy a car that is associated with the job in which you do. I mentioned this earlier, and also because of abantu bazothini angithi. So I'm an engineer, why would I drive a Picanto type of a thing? However, I love the story that you have on the book, where you showed the difference between Utabo, who actually bought a car very early, and as his career actually progressed, he also improved in terms of the car that he was driving. And ultimately, when he was ready to actually retire, he didn't have enough because he had spent some of his retirement on the way, right? So I wanted to know, like, yes, we know what the benefit, I spoke earlier about the benefit of delayed gratification, what will happen if you wait longer. But what are the financial implications of lifestyle inflation? When your income increases, you move a house. When your income increases, you buy a house, a car that fits your current title. What is the long-term financial implication on having to keep up with the Jones? That would be my last question, actually. Yeah. You're on mute. Sorry, May. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I was saying that it is very unfortunate when we don't look at the long-term effects of the decisions that we're taking now. And we see this with professionals. People sometimes have to work all their lives, not because they want to, but because they have to. And it's almost a culture, and a very sad one, that we use cars almost to bully each other. You know, I'm driving the best car, my car is the latest model. And the first thing we do when we get a job or a salary increase is to go and buy that car of our dreams. But I think as we speak about these things and become aware of these things, we will do better, because things are bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things are bad.
Okay, let me try to read some of the questions. I do not see any question. Rizani says, sorry, she's late because of load shedding. Okay, there is a question here that says, good evening, ladies. I trust that you are well. I want to close one debit that I have. Which method is best? I one, to pay extra 1,000 every month. Second one, to put 1,000 aside every month to pay it at the end of the year. Went to the bank, they didn't respond well. They told me about increasing repo rates. I couldn't understand. Okay, that is I don't know if you're seeing the question. She's asking if she should pay it into the account, as in like extra, or if she should save it aside and then pay it at the end of the year as a collective. Like, which method would work on that one debit order? There's no specificity on what type of debit order it is.
Okay, no, that's fine. I think for me, it goes back to interest rates.
Yes.
When you look at what interest you earn on that 1,000 rands per month, depending where you're saving that money, you could be earning as little as 0.1, if that.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, as we said, we don't know what type of debt this is, but chances are you're looking at interest. If it's a credit card, you're already looking at around 21%. If it's a personal loan, you're looking at around 30%. So I would rather you pay that debt monthly, because the interest income that you are going to earn is much less in all likelihood than the interest that you're paying on that debt, especially now with repo at 8.25, I think it is. You know, interest rates are so high that you want to minimize your debt as far as possible.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. The second question says, you touched a bit on debt and mujolo. How do you advise one to start having debt conversation with their partner? This one is, I love this. And also parents.
Yes, yes.
I got into debt after getting married and have managed to keep it a secret. This is I love this question.
Just read that again. Just read again about getting married and keeping it a secret.
Exactly. So the question is, how do one start a conversation with their partner about debt conversation with their partner? It goes on to say that I got into debt after we've gotten married and I've managed to keep it a secret. So how do I come out? How do I then start the conversation?
All right. I wonder whether the person is married ante nuptial contract, because in terms of you know, the National Credit Act, if you are married in conflict of property, when you enter into debt, your spouse, because they are also, you know, liable for that debt, is supposed to countersign on that. You know, honesty is always the best thing to do.
Yes.
Speak about it. And just for the ladies here tonight, please, before you marry anyone, ask for their credit report.
The report.
No, because things are bad out there.
Can I access, sorry to interject, can I access their credit reports without their awareness?
But you know, you should be honest with each other. No, you cannot, unless maybe you use, is it, I can't remember now, the clear score. Yeah, unless you use clear score and you've got his ID number, then you can wing it. Yes. But we've got to be honest. You know, there's a saying that why do marriages fail? Mostly because of money squabbles.
Yes.
Therefore, it's important to speak about money, and the earlier you do it, the better. And you be honest, you know, in your money conversations. You know, there's no right, there's no wrong. But if you understand your relationship with money and the relationship that your spouse or spouse to be has with money, maybe you can assist each other along the way rather than hiding. And you know, and there's also, unfortunately, even financial abuse, you know, that can happen in relationships, in marriage, where people just demand things that are not affordable and demand the best of everything from the other spouse and all of that. So we've got to speak about money and be as honest as we can in our money conversations and seek help when necessary. But the earlier it's done, the better. That's why, you know, some institutions, churches, and I'm part of that, are now running premarital courses, and they include personal finance therein. And you know, I get invited so that I begin to prompt people to speak openly about money.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for your insights. I appreciate that. And I hope that we are all learning on how we can improve the health of our marriages, our relationships, by being honest. And the earlier we start, the better. There is a question here on the chat, but I would just like maybe someone who wants to unmute and just ask the question themselves in the meantime, just to raise up their hand so that we can also hear you guys in regards to what you're thinking and what your feedback is on the book. We have a couple of few minutes before we can get into the last question, which is on the chat. I'm going to leave it for last, the one that we have on the chat. But if you guys have a question, just, you know, raise up your hand and unmute, and then we can hear your thoughts on the book. And there is a question. I'm going to go for Tinawanga. Tinawanga, you can unmute. Muraro will come to you. Tinawanga, you can unmute and just tell us what your thoughts are, as well as your question if you have one.
Okay, thank you so much. I haven't read the book, but I just have a question. I think it's the same as the one that the lady asked about the payment. If one use the home loan as their savings, I'm saying that, let's say I have a bond which I have to pay 8,000, and then on my salary I can still save 4,000, and I put that 4,000 towards my bond, and where you find I've gotten money that is saved on my bond. Whenever, let's say if I need something, I can still use that money. So I don't know if it's a secure method. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard that. She's asking if it's a secure method to put money additional in her access bond. Yeah, and she's using some of it when she needs it. I guess that's why the tool, maybe she's using the tool. She's asking if that is a secure method. And I love that it's in the book, by the way. So please go buy the book.
Yes, it's actually the best thing to do for a number of reasons. Any additional money that you put into your home loan is allocated towards the capital owing on that home loan. So what that does, it reduces the capital borrowed, which then reduces the interest that you are going to pay on that home loan. So you actually doing yourself a favor. If you are not over borrowing from that money that you're paying extra into your home loan, you could easily end up paying that home loan much sooner than you have intended. For instance, you know, I have young people who are now leaving South Africa, going to work in the UK and elsewhere in the world. And sometimes when they approach me and they're worried about their home loans and all of that, and we work out a method for them to ensure that by the time they leave, they've either paid off their home loans or they are close to paying them off, so that when they are away, they don't have to worry about what happens, with that home loan. So it's the best thing you can do for yourself is to pay more into your home loan, because you could end up paying that home much sooner than the 20 years that is often given to people when we buy homes.
Okay, thank you so much. I would also ask Vusiseki Lekumalo to also unmute and also contribute or add into the conversation or ask a question.
Hi, thank you, Zwanda. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Phumelele. How are you?
Hi, Vusiseki.
Good, thanks. So, the thing I want to ask is on a credit score. Okay, so I'm the kind of person who buys cash. Like wherever, if I can, I rather save up for something and buy. I don't have a clothing account. I don't have any account. So in terms of credit score, how then do I grow my credit score?
Okay.
Maybe before you can answer, can I also ask the question that is on the chat, because it's in relation to the credit score topic, and then maybe you can just answer both. It says, good evening, everyone. Let's say I have a credit card with a credit limit of 50,000 as an example. I then decide to pay up my credit card. Which would be the best option to maintain a good credit score? Do I pay up and close the account? Do I pay up and reduce the limit to maybe 500? To maybe 5,000? Is there a better option, or is there another option? So I just thought, as a collective of credit score, we can collect. Yeah.
Okay. It's unfortunate that sometimes we must get into debt that we do not need, so that one day when we need to buy that house or that car, we can then qualify in terms of credit worthiness. So what debt can you have? I often address young graduates who are starting out in the world of work. And I always say, when you're starting out, you may need, things like a bed, maybe a laptop, the basic furniture that young people need when they start out. And what you could do is then buy over time, and the allay buys as an option and all of that. But don't get into debt that will end up tempting you to even buy things that you don't need. My worry with a credit card is you can use it anywhere and everywhere. Whereas if you had a store card, I won't mention names of stores, because I'm not promoting any store in particular, but it might be better to have a store card where you can buy useful stuff like a laptop or a bed or whatever piece of furniture you need as a young person who's starting out and moving away from home. And the key thing is keep your credit limit as small as possible. What concerns me, for instance, with the question on the chat there, is we're talking big amounts, 50,000 on a credit card. And to answer that question, yes, I will reduce that as drastically as possible. Even if it means I reduce it down to 1,000 rands, I will do so, just so that I keep the credit limit, provided you are disciplined with your money. I always say that one thing that no one ever told us is that a credit card is really for the financially disciplined. If you have no financial discipline, your credit card is going to cause problems for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to take two last people. I know that the owners of the program are probably
Don't
getting
skip
angry
me. Don't
with
skip me.
Yes, it's you, Murado.
I'm choosing. I was just like, oh my
No,
goodness.
I'm choosing you and Zinhle to ask your questions, and then we are closing with the questions. Yeah, and then we'll we'll give Malibu back her program.
Okay,
So
not a problem. Thank you very much for the opportunity. On page 39, you spoke about a Section 58 form and saying that don't sign forms that you don't understand.
Oh, yes.
So I wanted to find out if that is the same as the debt acknowledgement letter, because I've once been requested to sign a debt acknowledgement letter for a bursary that turned into a loan. So I wanted to find out, luckily enough, that has been paid off and I don't have that debt anymore. So I wanted to find out if a debt acknowledgement letter is the same as the Section 58 and what are the implications of signing the debt acknowledgement letter? Thank you.
It's a great
Okay.
question, Mraro.
All right. What I was trying to say in that page 39 is, and I know this, if you're not a lawyer and you've never been to court, there's the way that you don't want to go there, you're too scared. But understand this, magistrates themselves and other people there, they've got money problems just like all of us. It doesn't cost you, you may actually be better off by saying, yes, I want to go to court because I cannot afford to pay this debt. You may find that the debt you are being forced to acknowledge and start paying for is debt that might have prescribed. So they might not even take you to court because they know that when they go to court, the magistrate is going to throw it out on the grounds of prescription. That is number one. Or alternatively, after listening to you, they might decide that, you know what, this person wants to pay this debt, but honestly cannot afford to pay the 5,000 rands per month, but maybe they will be able to pay, let's say, maybe 3,000 rands per month. So if you've signed that Section 58 letter, you've actually given your rights away because you're saying, don't take me to court to argue this matter, get a garnishi or a judgment against me. So you're basically limiting or giving away the protection that you have in terms of law to protect yourself.
Okay, so the acknowledgement letter is the same as the section, I forgot the number.
Section 58.
Yes.
It depends on the letter of acknowledgement. I'm trying to think now.
I think the section, the page
Sometimes
39 one was for garnishing.
I'll tell you why I have a problem with that acknowledgement of debt.
Okay.
In terms of legally, when debt is over 3 years old, it's prescribed.
Yes.
But you can interrupt the prescription, for instance, by signing that letter of acknowledgement. And that's why, for me, remember when you take on debt, initially, you will have signed certain, contracts anyhow. So why are you signing other contracts after the fact? So you may, people, through lack of understanding of prescription, sometimes they then interrupt that prescription by acknowledging the debt over the phone, where you are being phoned and you ask about this debt, or signing such letters of acknowledgement. You have signed initially, so don't sign after the effect.
No, thank you. Zinhle, you can go ahead and then you'd be our last person to speak.
Hi, thank you so much for the session. I have a question regarding the credit card limit. So from what I've heard, it's that you're not supposed to use like 100% of your credit card because that affects your score. It makes it look like you are dependent on debt. So is it not then, if you know you're gonna use 5,000 every month and pay it back, would it not be advisable to keep it maybe at 20,000, but just make sure that you use that 5,000 so it doesn't look like you are dependent on debt? Thanks. I hope I make sense.
No, you're making sense, but I'm not so sure where that comes from, because what negatively affects your credit record, particularly insofar as your credit card is concerned, is when you do not pay it on time. And hence I always say, I know that sometimes you may have your primary bank being bank A and your credit card being offered by bank C, as an example. And I always say the best way to ensure that you pay what is required timely and the right amount rather set a stop order where you automatically pay that credit card on the payment date. And you know, I generally have a problem with credit cards because there's such limited understanding of credit cards, in particular 55 days interest-free, where people don't understand when do you start counting that 55 days. And also what happens, for instance, if you don't pay that specified or required amount on due date. And these are the simple things that can affect your credit score. So if you have a credit card, know what is your payment date. As far as possible, make sure that you pay on payment date. And if it means setting up a stop order to pay timely, do so, because late payment will affect you.
Okay, so even if I do keep the limit at 1,000 and then I use up that 1,000 for as long as I'm paying it in time, then that will not in any way affect my credit score.
In time and the required amount. So if you are expected to pay 200 rands per month and you pay 180, it's going to affect you. But if you pay the amount required or more, then your credit score will be fine.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Zinhle. Muraro, we'll take it back to you, but Pume, may you please maybe also respond to the question on the chat about protecting your assets. I know this is like a good question for a lot of people, but we're out of time. Muraro is already kicking me out, so maybe you can just try to check it on the chat if it's possible to answer it.
It says, are the ways to protect assets after marriage without permission from spouse, if marriage or with the accrual system? Can a trust fund help protect assets? How do they work? Okay, yes, they are. And I've done this for some women who went and got married in contempt of property, and then they ran into trouble. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this on an open platform like this, but yeah, we do assist, because you can register a trust without, your spouse does not have to give us a right to register the trust. But let me just say this, you know, I think as women, and maybe this is a good platform to say this, because we're supposed to be empowered women. As women, we must not shy away from asking the right questions, getting advice and guidance before we get married. Marriage, unfortunately, has become a contract for many people. And sometimes for some people, it could be the quickest way to riches. So don't be a victim of getting married in contempt of property. Seek guidance, you know, seek advice, and make sure that you get, there is no correct marriage contract. And oftentimes when we speak of antenuptial contracts, we are accused, especially by, you know, the religious, as if we're saying divorce and all of that. It's not even about divorce only. It's also about protecting your family assets if you're a businesswoman and your business fails. So there's more to these antenuptial contracts than just divorce. But I will really ask that if you are still single today and you are here, get advice, get guidance before you get married. But to answer directly, receive, I will say, yes, you can draft that trust even after you are married. It's going to cost you to manage that trust. The drafting fee is in the region of 10,000 rands. And when it is registered, the trust deed is registered, it's also going to cost you in the region of 700 to 800 rands per month to maintain that trust. And you are also going to have to submit to SARS, and you know, it's an onerous compliance that is required, because remember, the trust is a separate legal entity to yourself. Maybe getting married antenuptial with approval will have been a better option than trying to, you know, as the saying goes, prevention is better than cure. So let's prevent problems, and that could be cheaper than trying to register a trust after the effect. If you want to know how trust works, I think I've written about 4 newsletters. They are all available in our blog. You just go there and you type, trusts, and there'll be those 4 newsletters. That was the quickest and the cheapest way for me to share information on trust.
Thank you so, so much. It was really, really a pleasure for me to speak to you. I am so honored, and thank you, Muraro, and the Empowered Women team for trusting me with this platform to be able to facilitate. So I'll take it back to Muraro if there's going to be a closing.
Thank you very much, Zwanda, for leading us on this session where we're doing case presentation and book discussion. And also thank you to you, Phumelele and Ndumo, for joining us tonight on this session. It's always an honor to do a book review session and have an author join us. And hopefully this year, because all the authors are part of our book club, hopefully we'll have everyone join in on their own book review session. So thank you all. In terms of wrap up and closing, there's feedback form which will be sent. We'll send it on the WhatsApp group where you can share feedback. As you have noted, people said they want an hour only, but the discussion continues. It looks like an hour and a half would be sufficient.
We tried.
But it's something that we can decide on as a group if this would work for us, but there'll be sessions that would end within an hour and some will obviously go a bit over. So thank you very much. Yeah, this book, I really enjoyed reading the book. And I know that most of the women that are here have also enjoyed reading this book. And it's a good thing to start off the year with talking about finances, because when we talk about finances, it allows us to be empowered economically, and then we're able to also create wealth for the next generation. So our February book is also on finances. It's written by Tembisa Ngadi Ntuli. So this is the book. It's called Healing Financial Traumas, Gateway to Wealth. So now we've moved from debt to riches. With finances, sometimes there's things that we don't know exist. Sometimes it's things that are linked to our parents. I know some of the examples here that you gave was that someone said that their parents are in debt, so they don't know how to deal with finances. So some of those traumas we're going to be tackling in our February book. And then the next review date will be on Sunday, the 25th of February, 2024. So thank you all for joining us for tonight's session. Thank you to the team. Thank you to our case presenter and our author for joining us tonight. And you're most welcome to follow us on the social platforms. It's Empowered Women Book Club, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. And the recording for tonight's session will also be available on this platform. Wishing you all a successful week ahead, and may you have a lovely evening. Thank you all.